Hey guys, Southern Sage. As promised, we're going to talk food forests. So today I want to introduce what a food forest is, kind of what are its layers, what do we mean by that, and maybe do a little walking around in my food forest under development to show you what I mean. So a food forest is a food production system based mostly on perennials that incorporates trees. Okay, so that's the forest part. When we talk about it, we say we should imitate a natural ecosystem, so we should have all of the different plant structures and all of the different ecosystem functions that would exist in a natural ecosystem in our food forests. Right, so we're trying to create a system that is self-supporting, that provides its own nutrients, captures its own carbon, cycles nutrients, and that becomes more productive year after year after year after year. Okay, so this is the whole permaculture design thing. So for a food forest, if we start talking about that structure from the top down, we begin with trees. So we've got a couple of categories of trees. The first one is the big overstory trees, which if you look behind me in my food forest, incorporate these two gorgeous pecan trees and also some of the pines, and there's a couple of oaks in here. So these are the overstory trees, the big tall guys. The next trees are the understory trees. So all of our fruit trees are in this category. So are things like redbuds and mimosas and pawpaws. These are all understory trees. And I don't have any of those in here to show you right now because they haven't arrived yet, but we'll get there. The next layer is shrubs, and I have lots of shrubs. So I'm gonna switch over here. So here we can see currants. So those are a favorite of mine. I think they're delicious. They are a native North American plant. And they're a cousin of the gooseberry. And these currants are planted around an itty bitty baby pecan tree down here, if you see this tiny little bitty stick. So eventually that guy will be big and the currants will be living in its shade. I also have goji berries that just got planted last week, and there's cornelian cherry and more different kinds of currant, all of these things in this garden. So that's the shrub layer. So you should have at least as many understory trees as you have canopy trees, sometimes more because they take up less space. You should have about double or triple the number of shrubs as you do understory or canopy trees, which I'm well on track for here. And then we get to the herbaceous layer. So fancy word, but it means something that is not woody, that dies down to the ground every year, but is perennial and is not a ground cover. So pretty much anything that's a flower that you're used to qualifies as something in the herbaceous layer. In this garden, I have daffodils and iris and daylily and lemon balm and comfrey, lots of comfrey, and some perennial kale and some sea kale, and so lots of things. And when I told you yesterday, day before yesterday, that I had a few hundred plants coming for the food forest, most of those are going in the herbaceous layer. So lots of medicinal herbs are coming. And then we have the ground cover layer. Now this one is vital because it prevents weeding. So once those ground covers get established, they cover the ground, they crowd out the grasses, they crowd out the other weeds for the most part, and they build soil. And so they build and hold soil. So in this garden, I have this lovely established vinca that is blooming so beautifully right now that is getting transplanted around. I also have yarrow that I brought from my last garden. So as a super medicinal, it will get to take over this whole section of the food forest as the ground cover. And over this way, we have a couple of varieties of mint that I also moved from my old farm that will get to take over this section of the food forest as a ground cover. So the key here is to have lots of ground cover, lots of different kinds, and see what works. But don't forget it. You will make so much work for yourself if you forget the ground cover. So then the next category is root crops, which includes mycelium. So if I go digging around in the mulch here, I will pretty quickly uncover a bunch of white networks of mycelium because they have thoroughly inoculated all of these wood chips, which is beautiful. Yay, mushrooms. And you can inoculate those to make them mushrooms you want. In this case, I've just let this be wild, and whatever decided to colonize here, colonized here. But you can be more intentional, obviously. Other things that qualify in the root layer for me are actually these daylilies, because I eat the daylily roots. They're quite tasty, as are the greens, if you didn't know that, and the flowers. So those are in that category. I have Egyptian walking onions over here that are an edible root that I would eat. You can also start, obviously, a ton of other things that would be roots. And then the last of the 7 layers that we have in the temperate deciduous forest that we're imitating is the vine layer. And so in that category, I don't have much in this garden yet. There will be some grapes introduced, and I do have hardy kiwi that are in pots right now waiting to come out, but their support structure doesn't exist yet. So that's a different project. But you want vines. So those are our 7 food forest layers and kind of what it's all about, and a little bit of a tour of what's here. So I'm planning for later in the week or next week to do a more detailed tour of what I've designed here, where it's at, and where I hope it goes over the course of this year and the coming several. So I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to food forests with some early spring examples from my garden. Like, subscribe, let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know what else you'd like to see. Thanks.